Good day. Welcome to the Cory Morgan Show. This is the Western Standards weekly show where I get on and rant and complain about what's got me wound up. Once in a while, I point out some solutions to things. I'm more of a problems sort of guy, though. And of course, our governments at all levels always provide me lots of fodder to go on about. My name is Cory Morgan, of course, as per the name of the show. And looking forward to turning your ear for this next 45 minutes to an hour or so. For those watching live, I'd like to remind everybody, make use of the comment scroll, even Freedom Honey. I could allow that sort of thing going on in there. He's actually a representative of one of the guests I got coming on. We just got to make sure to keep it civil, but I like seeing the discourse, the discussion. And if you're watching the recorded version, I still quite appreciate it, of course, but the comments won't apply to you. So yes, I'm got a lot to cover. I've got a guest coming on. He's a veteran. He runs Freedom Honey. I didn't think to ask how to pronounce his last name, so I know him as Mike from Freedom Honey, and I believe his last name is Meilleur. Oh, God, I don't know. I'm terrible with names. He can let me know once he gets in here, I'm sure. So we're going to chat with him for a little while about some veterans issues and things like that when he gets in. It is that time. Remembrance Day is approaching. I see some of the folks otherwise checking in. Mr. Stanley is present, as are others. So thanks for joining. So I'm going to start off with what's got me wound up this week. And that's Jordan correcting me on the pronunciation. Meilleur. Okay, thank you. So you see, that's the nice things of a live show. I'll get some people fixing some things up. Of course, I wouldn't screw up in the first place if I could cover it up with a retake. All right, let's talk about this week's news and then talk about a little history to start it off with. So in Canada's 1980 federal election, there's a Liberal strategist named Keith Davey, and he coined the phrase, "Screw the West, we'll take the rest." It was a blunt way of stating what is the most effective federal political strategy in Canada. You drain resources from Western Canada while pandering to the East for votes. And the tactic worked like a charm. Pierre Trudeau won a majority government over the hapless Joe Clark. Now, Justin Trudeau, he's taken Davey's advice, at least the first part of it, to heart. He never hesitates to screw the West at every possible opportunity. He's having a hard time, though, with the other part, which is taking the rest, as his polling numbers continue their free fall into record low territory for the Liberal Party of Canada. So while the strategy of regional division in federal politics is a pretty sound one, usually it still requires a party leader with a marginal degree of competence. Now, Trudeau's latest move has been his most crass. He suspended the carbon tax applied to people's heating their homes with heating oil. Now, this was almost clever on his part, or whoever his ideas was, as it isn't overtly a regional political play. But in practice, it's very regional. There's only one part of Canada where heating oil is in common use, and that's in the Atlantic provinces. Media, politicians, and the public caught on to that tactic pretty much immediately. The gross unfairness of the policy was just too much to swallow for provincial leaders, and this is where the fracturing of this country is coming in. Saskatchewan's Premier Scott Moe is saying he's going to outright break the law and have Sask Power, the Crown Corporation that provides natural gas, that refuse to collect Justin's carbon taxes any longer. Alberta Premier Smith, of course, is threatening further use of the Sovereignty Act unless we get a break on the carbon tax to heat our homes out here in the prairies. It gets pretty cold out here. Even in BC, where it doesn't get as cold, and it's an NDP Premier Eby, he's calling for breaks for his province as well. And Ontario's Premier Doug Ford is actually calling for scrapping the carbon tax altogether, which is what Trudeau should do. Quebec, of course, they already had special status, so they're sitting quietly on the sidelines watching the cracks in national unity widening into fissures under Trudeau's leadership. I mean, they love seeing the unity going down the toilet anyways. I mean, after years of claiming the carbon tax doesn't impact the cost of living for Canadians, Trudeau just admitted the tax is causing hardship on people trying to heat their homes, at least in Atlantic Canada. I think we got to heat them out here too. People heating with natural gas, yes, we will continue to suffer under the carbon tax because that's predominantly Western Canada. Rural Economic Development Minister, federal one, Goody Hutchings, she deserves her name mispronounced, told CTV, "I can tell you that the Liberal Atlantic Caucus was vocal with what they've heard from their constituents, and perhaps they need to elect more Liberals in the prairies so we can have that conversation as well." Yeah, and basically putting the guns to our head. It's their way of saying, vote Liberal or we're going to continue to screw you with taxes. Trudeau's always claimed that the climate issue is so important the carbon tax must remain in order to save the world. If it really has that much benefit upon the environment, though, how could he possibly reverse even a portion of such an important tax? I mean, won't some fuzzy bunnies die somewhere because the temperature went up now? Unchecked inflation. That's dogged the Liberal government since the pandemic. And now the head of the Bank of Canada has admitted the carbon tax alone is responsible for 16% of the inflation. Now, whatever little credibility Trudeau might have had in the carbon tax, it's in tatters. The tax survived court challenges due to its apparent world-saving nature. But now how can you go to court and say, well, it's there to save the world, but we'll selectively apply it here, there, and everywhere? Now something interesting is seeing the sharks within the Liberal Party. They're starting to circle. Heir apparent Mark Carney, he came out to speak on how he kind of respects Trudeau's work on the climate, but he would do things differently on the carbon tax. It's a subtle way of doing it, but his words are starting to take on the tone of a leadership contender. Others are going to come out of the woodwork as an unofficial leadership campaign begins to develop. But will Trudeau get it? Can he get it? Does he really think if he just pounds on the West hard enough, his political fortunes will change? I mean, ignoring the spirit of the Supreme Court ruling that found most of his No More Pipelines bill to be unconstitutional didn't win him any support in the East anyways, and it just infuriated the West further and made him look all the more inept with his policy development. If and when Trudeau reads the writing on the wall, what is he going to do on the way out the door, though? He desperately wants to have a legacy as a climate crusader, and he's always seen Western Canadian industries as his biggest enemy on that front. He wants to finish what his dad did and shut down the West. Will he make one more effort to crush the West, whether out of spite or misguided idealism? I wouldn't put it beyond him. Trudeau's already proven his pet climate project is more important than national unity. The fractures he's creating within the country could lead to a full shattering of the nation. I don't know. Even changing leaders, it probably won't change things, but people better start paying attention, people in the East, because you're the ones who put them there. And if you want unity in this country, you are not going to get it as long as that ass clown is our prime minister. All right, that's what's got me wound up today to start things off and kick them off. Let's see what else is happening out there. I know it's crazy busy news stuff going on out there. We'll check in with our news editor, Dave Naylor, in the newsroom. Hey, Dave, how's it going?
Thanks. Hey, good, Cory. What did you go out dressed as last night?
I hid within my home with the lights turned out, one of those grumpy folks who just hides from the children. It's better for the world that I stay inside.
Yeah, especially with all those bears and cougars around your compound, it would be a happy hunting season for the bears if you did.
Yeah, true enough. Well, they aren't that afraid of me when I'm dressed as a human, so maybe if I went with an animal outfit, it would fix things up. I'll try that next year, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, I'm the same as you, Cory. I hid out at the local pub till about 8:30, and then went home, made sure all the lights were turned out. So, well, we're just a bunch of curmudgeons, eh?
It gets that way.
So, as you said, another busy news morning. Our site right now is leading off with a column from some character called Cory Morgan, talking about Trudeau's eco-obsession that is shattering Canada. So that's very popular at our site. You'll be pleased to know the Alberta government also this morning updated their insurance reform plan. Basically, if you're a good driver, they're going to limit the amount that your insurance can go up by tapping it at 3.7%. We've got to follow on our Linda Slobodian's excellent work on getting Remembrance Day prayers back allowed. The government had banned prayers at Remembrance Day last month, believe it or not, and through Linda's work, they seems to have reversed the ban. So that's good news. So I encourage you to check out the story and read her column there. Speaking of Halloween, Cory, and this is where you and I think, differ, we've got a piece up there on Justin Trudeau's kid, who went out as a decapitated person last night, just 2 weeks after the Hamas terrorist attack that saw them decapitate babies and soldiers and women. But you sort of took the other stream. You said, hey, it's just Halloween, give them a break.
I thought it was actually a pretty good costume. The timing, I'm sure I mean, Justin's not a deep thinker. That's fair enough. It just never occurred to him that somebody might see it otherwise. And of course, the kid's just being a kid. I don't think there was intent to cause offense at a time like this. Maybe somebody helping him with his Twitter account should have warned him on it. But I think we got bigger things to roast Mr. Trudeau over than how his kid was dressed up. And I mean, I admit, aside from the timing, that was a pretty cool costume.
Yeah, maybe, but timing is everything, as they say in this business, Cory. And Trudeau is getting people angry enough at, as you say, the carbon tax. We've got a story on Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe talking about his disappointment. And the Saskatchewan Energy Minister says he's willing to go to climate jail to fight Trudeau and the carbon tax. And we've got a good story on a former taxman, a Canada Revenue Agency employee who conducted a very massive fraud scheme and was claiming benefits for 61 different children, believe it or not, getting hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of taxpayers' money. So he's been sentenced to 18 months in jail. So he can try adding up tax returns from the sin bin, Cory.
Oh, it's good to see somebody finally caught in that sort of thing anyways. I mean, we work enough to pay these guys. We don't need other ones dipping into the pool above and beyond our politicians.
Exactly.
Okay, well, right on, Dave. And I guess we got the UCP AGM coming up before next week. The Standard will be covering that pretty closely, I imagine.
Yeah, it'll be wall-to-wall coverage with our team down there, Jonathan Bradley, Sean Polzer, and Jen Hodgsons. So yeah, tune in during the weekend. We'll have live updates.
Right on. All right, Dave. Well, I'll leave you back to all those stories, and after the show, I'll come out and argue with you some more about Halloween costumes.
I'll look forward to it, Cory.
Right on. Thanks, Dave. That is our news editor, Dave Naylor. And yeah, lots of stories. Yeah, differences of opinion on things. Fair enough. And just all sorts of stuff to cover. I mean, the news moves fast. We've got a room full of people, as he was mentioning. The reason we have those folks, guys working hard like Jonathan and Mike and all the rest out there, is because you guys subscribe. And we really appreciate it. It's $9.99 a month. $100 for a year. This is how we stay independent, guys. This is how we pay the bills. This is how we beat the censors and don't have to answer to the federal government. So if you've subscribed already, thank you very much. And if you haven't subscribed yet, get on there, westernstandard.news/membership. Take out a subscription. It keeps this stuff rolling. It allows us to expand and keep covering these events and doing a better job. And I think we're doing a pretty good job so far. But there's always room to improve. I mean, look how terrible the mainstream media is. Come on, you can't even stomach that stuff anymore. At least I can't. Though I still dip in there because I got to see what they're doing. I watch them so you don't have to. And I'll filter through that crap and feed you my filtered interpretation of that crap so you get a better showing of it. Good to see some of the other folks checking in. Tiggy saying good morning from BC. And Mr. Stanley, I'll leave your comment out of it, but I appreciate the humor all the same. So, yeah, what else we got going on? Like I said, the AGM, it's a big one. It's a big one. I think they're expecting 3,600 people to come out to that AGM here in Calgary for the United Conservative Party. It will be, I believe, the largest political convention held in Canadian history. Like, we've not had that many people come out to one before. The venue is going to be huge. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they can be productive, how they can get things accomplished with such a large crowd. And the cost to attend it was pretty significant. I think it was like $300 if you didn't get the early bird rate, $150 or $200 if you got the early bird. I'm not sure, but that's a lot of people spending a lot of money and traveling all to converge in Calgary. And this is between elections. This is post-election. This is usually when you're going into the doldrums of politics. But people are clearly very interested with what's going on there. There's very hotly contested roles for the board of the party. And I know some people are upset because Take Back Alberta has been openly organizing and saying we want folks to get out and vote for certain folks. But all they're saying is use the system, play it, do what is in front of you if you like. If you don't agree with who is being put forward, again, head on down there and vote otherwise, campaign otherwise, run for it. This is democracy in action. You won't always like the outcome of it. I rarely like the outcome of democratic actions, it seems sometimes, but all the same, participation's the key. So no matter who is behind bringing out such a turnout and with the motivation, it's a good sign. The more people that are there, the better the chance some common sense decisions, policies, selections of people in positions within the party are going to come out of that exercise this weekend. I'll be going there as well. I'll be observing. I'll be writing columns on it. I'll be doing stuff. No, I didn't pay that amount. We don't pay that well in the independent media. Luckily, I got in under the media access. Plus, I'm not a party member anyways. I'm just there to critique and watch. And look forward to seeing some of you guys there. Okay, let's get on to my guest. I'm going to slaughter his name one more time since he's here to be able to correct it for me. Mike Meilleur?
Meilleur.
This is straightforward from Freedom Honey. Yes, if some of you were on Twitter, X, and so on would know Mike already and Freedom Honey and your podcast on there, at least the voice. You tend to keep your face out of it whilst you're cursing and going on.
I think I have a face for radio. I think that's the trick.
Oh, I don't know. You look pretty enough to me. I'm sure the fan mail will be coming in soon enough. But
all right. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, and I'll give, I guess, a little background. It being coming up on Remembrance Day, veterans issues are coming to the fore. They're always there, but this is the time of year when people are paying attention to it. And you are a veteran and you work on some veteran initiatives. So I'll kind of let you go from there and expand a bit on that.
Yeah, awesome. So basically, did 12 years service, got out of the military, bought a farm out in the middle of nowhere, and we started this honey operation. This was basically just going to be a pet project, you know, kind of a hobby. And then we had a lot of support from some of our vet buddies and everything like that. So myself and Pedro decided to kind of give back. So originally, whatever we make from the honey, we just donate it back to the Veterans Food Bank. But now we've been helping with PTSD. We've been advocating for other causes. We were pretty vocal when it came to the veterans getting kicked, soldiers getting kicked out for non-compliance with the vaccine mandate. So we kind of fought back with that. We help promote other veteran businesses, and I stir a lot of shit on X. Like yourself.
Yes, that I do. It's my favorite playground. Well, I appreciate it. And creative ways to get out there. I mean, everybody's kind of tapped. There are dozens, hundreds of good causes. There really are. Everything from animal welfare to Down Syndrome Society, you name it. And we all want to help with as many ways as we can. But I think something that helps is something, well, where you get a bit of a product or you get something going. You know, you've got some honey on the go. You've got the exercise of beekeeping in itself provides some therapeutic benefit.
Yeah. So it turns out that the tone that the bees will vibrate at when they're buzzing is actually, it triggers some neurons in the brain to actually help with PTSD relief. So what we'll do is we'll get my friends and we'll get guys, we'll get them over to the farm, we'll get them in the suit, and we'll just hang out, do some bee stuff, and drink cheap beer. Generally, I mean, it works. Yeah. Speaking of that, I brought you some stuff.
Yes.
I know you don't, you're not on the sauce anymore, but I figured for the rest of the riffraff around here. Guys, this is Iron Hive Meadery, local Edmonton. They also distribute in Calgary and a few other places. This guy was infantry, started this meadery, reached out to us, asked if we could supply them. Sadly, I mean, the amount they want is just ridiculous for now. We're kind of in the boutique niche right now, so we're not into massive production. Really good stuff. Check them out, Iron Hive Meadery. 21 locations available in Edmonton, 7 in Calgary, and a few other places. So really good stuff. I'm sure the rest of the riffraff here will enjoy this. Probably between now and the pipeline.
It'll be consumed pretty quickly afterwards. And just for folks who aren't familiar with the mead, I mean, it's like the oldest form of alcohol. It's a honey-based type of drink. If you don't,
it's honey. It's honey wine. It's honey wine. Yeah, and it's really sweet, obviously, but I think it's better than wine.
Well, and it's a veteran initiative, just as Freedom Honey, and that's why, you know, I mean, normally we don't let people come in with product plugs, but this is different. This is a veteran business sort of thing that's going on because we're asking for support. So people are looking, veterans come back, they're leaving the service. They have a hard time getting their feet under them sometimes, moving into the rest of the world, and business initiatives are another way to do so. So this meadery, you know, and type of brewing is one of those ways to do it in a small business way.
And I'm sure they appreciate the plug. But right now, services for vets it's like pulling teeth. It is a shame. I mean, we're getting close to Remembrance Day. Christmas time is the worst. The culture has really changed in the military that it's becoming a lot more accepted when it comes to mental health and all this stuff. The issue is once you're out of the Army, trying to access that care, it's a nightmare. And a lot of guys fall through the cracks, and we end up with homeless veterans. We end up with people with high suicide rates, and that part is sad. I mean, to bring awareness to the struggles that they're facing, and that's kind of what we help too. I mean, I've had those 3 AM phone calls of dealing with guys and previous guys that have been under my command, and my heart goes out to them. So if anything I can say, if anybody's out there suffering, call. I know it's the most difficult phone call you can ever make, but to someone you mean something, and the world will miss you.
Well, that's it. And I mean, Remembrance Day is the one time where we're kind of paying attention and recognizing, but shortly afterwards comes the Christmas season. And if somebody's been disconnected from family or friends, or is not in a good place, it can actually become a more dangerous and lonely time for some people, when it really should be one of celebration. So we shouldn't, you know, be forgetting our veterans and their needs at that sort of time.
A good way to give back too is to always Edmonton, Calgary, they got phenomenal veterans food banks. They're always looking for volunteers to help with Christmas hampers and stuff like that. So if you guys are looking a way to give back, give them a shout, because I'm sure they'll be more than willing to accept the help.
Well, that's something we just as a nation have really fallen badly on for a long time. I won't even fully just blame this government. This has been going on for a long time. We ask a lot of our service members going overseas, I mean, working domestically. It's not a high-paying, easy job by any means. But then when it's finished, when they get back, it's kind of, well, thanks for your service, and out the door. As Trudeau said, you know what, we just we have no more to give along those lines. But he's offering MAID now.
Yeah, the MAID thing, that was something we took hard. It originally had come out that it was one caseworker. I think they called him like the merchant of death or something like that. But no, now it's coming out that there's over 20 that have been offered this solution.
And I should expand on, not everybody necessarily knows the acronym. It's medical assistance in dying.
Yes.
So it's saying, hey, you call in for help and they offer you an injection.
Yeah. The issue is the worst part is calling for help, calling for VA, calling any kind of help, realizing that there's something wrong and you're calling for help. You're at your limit. You're in a dark place. You're probably depressed. The world is closing in, and it is very easy for someone to push you over that edge. And that's where we have such a big problem with this. And there's myself and a bunch of other vets and other groups. Mark Minke from the Operation Tango Romeo podcast, shout out to him. He's been fighting this case, and he was in Ottawa testifying on behalf of these people to bring some light to this, because it's an absolute tragedy. We don't take well enough care for our vets. The services, they say they're out there, but accessing them is just far too difficult. And we need to do better as a country. We need to do better as a nation.
Well, and it's unique, I guess. I mean, it's part of the issues. People who've never served, I can't pretend to understand it. But if you've come out of that different sort of career in that circumstance, I mean, the transition into the working world, aside from, you know, potentially traumatic situations and stress that came from past service, it's a whole new world of settling in, kind of reinventing yourself, and it needs supports. I mean, if only for our own selfish benefit, if our veterans are settling in well, we're doing better with neighbors and fewer people dependent on social services and things like that. It's an investment to make sure that they can transition into a...
Yeah, there's a couple of good organizations. Helmets to Hard Hats is a good example of out there to help with transition. Right now, with so many people leaving the military, it's busy, and you know, there's always vets looking for work. I mean, on myself, I get calls all the time asking, hey, do you know who's hiring and stuff like that. And I'm talking about these are good guys. These are the good men and women. These are the people that generally you want to hire. They'll show up to time. They'll be clean. They'll be sober. They'll do a good job, and they have that discipline. I myself in our company, not including my day job, we hire predominantly vets, and then my employees have no issues with that, and they generally worked out.
So, I mean, you're still in touch, I imagine, with a lot of people who are currently serving as well. I mean, that's been in the news a lot as well. I mean, it's bad enough we're not taking care of our vets when they're out of the service, but it sounds like we're not taking very good care of them in the service right now either.
There's vets right now sleeping in their cars. The cost of living has gotten so high, and pay hasn't been able to keep up, that in some of the big cities, Vancouver, Toronto, I mean, we've got guys literally sleeping in their cars.
While still serving,
getting up, putting their uniform on, going to work, going back to the car. Yeah. And it's terrible. We don't, the culture itself has changed drastically, going to be more inclusive and diverse. And they just, I won't say it's making a toxic work environment. It's changing their priorities. And a lot of guys feel that way, and they reach out and they talk. They're like, man, is it a big change?
Yeah, well, in morale, I imagine. I mean, well, with any job, it's important, but critical in the case of a service member. If you're going to put them into a dangerous situation overseas, or the world's getting crazy enough, we might be having dangerous situations here in Canada pretty soon. You want your service members to be feeling good about what they're doing and dedicated to the job before going into such a circumstance, because I mean, they're not going to necessarily be able to do their job very well if they're sour on the entire affair at the time.
No, with that, I think it's just a matter of the culture has swung one way so much that I think we need to come back to the grassroots, kind of what the Army, what our main core values are, what our main mission and objectives are. That's helping domestic, helping overseas, and kind of reinforcing that set of values. it's gone so, I mean, it's gone so far to the left that you just hear the stories and people are frustrated and people are upset. And that's why you see because of that culture shift, that's why you see so many people leaving right now. That's why our troop numbers have been decimated. So that I don't even think we're an effective force anymore.
Well, it doesn't look appealing for new people considering a career and moving into it. I mean, when you hear about how it's going, it's tragic because we need it. We have to have this.
It was the best decision I ever made in my life. I got out at a really good time. And since then, just being able to help the guys transition and bring them into the civilian world and helping them out and stuff like that. I mean, it means a lot to me. It means a lot to my business partner, Pedro. But at least we can be there to help guide people.
So going further, I'll go a little more into the beekeeping. Since again, I keep my bees, I enjoy them, and so on. I mean, just as a hobby for veterans or anybody like that's what I find as well. It's relaxing. It's a nice hobby getting in there. I mean, you've shown some of your videos. You know, when you're not big and wise about it, you can do some cursing and get the odd sting here and there. But they're not hornets. They're actually quite gentle bugs if you treat them right.
They are soothing. There's actually a lot of therapeutic benefit to it, and I recommend it to anybody. Everybody that wants to set up a little hive. I mean, it's not too much money to get into. Go outside. It really grounds you. You got to stay calm when you're working with them, and it's very, very, very therapeutic. I myself am allergic, so I always got that added level of danger.
Your hand swelled up quite.
Yeah, that was an interesting 5 days of injections. Last time I got stung pretty good, but normally Pedro gets stung, so we're fine.
We'll leave it to him to take it on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get stung the odd time. Luckily, it doesn't impact me except I run around like a little girl because I'm still a wimp when it comes to stinging insects.
It's when you get them in the suit, you run.
Yeah, well, I saw a great meme with that. It showed something like, the alien when the mouth is coming out of the other mouth, and it just says that moment when you realize that the bee on your veil isn't on the outside, it's on the inside. Says, oh, shit. Well,
yeah, exactly. All rules are gone out the window when that happens, and I'm flailing around.
Yeah, well, you see some of those people. There's that gal down in Texas, barehandedly scoops them out with.
Yeah, she's a hero. I'm not doing that.
No, either am I. So, but there's all sorts of levels in between. Just letting people know if they're considering it too. I mean, you get suited up, you stay calm. Even a wimp like me can pull it off. Like it's not a high risk hobby.
No.
You're
few $100, you're helping the environment because everybody needs to remember if they go, we're going with them.
Yeah, well, and those things produce. Holy cow! You run a hive well. I mean, one hive can make 80 to 100 pounds of honey in a year that you can take if it's a developed hive, and assuming you're leaving enough for the girls for the winter.
Yeah. It's definitely more than I can consume. So I mean, people are getting pretty good Christmas presents this year.
Well, that's it. If you're doing it as a hobbyist, for your friends and family, there you go. Jars of honey. And I mean, that's one of the beauty of it too. It's not like a big processing thing when it's done or anything. You're just taking it out, spinning it, straining it, and it's ready to roll.
I don't know. Your extractor looked like it came out of an antique mall.
It was an antique, but it worked.
I never said it didn't, but it looked like it came out of an antique mall.
That's right.
We got a couple $100 from work for exercise equipment. So we just took an old tractor, hooked it up to a V-belt, and running off that. Sorry, an old treadmill, and we run it off that.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, you can get creative. As my wife would attest, I'm mechanically special.
I just stick mine to hill climb and we're fine.
I need something where I can just turn a handle and open the bottom, and that's what it did. But again, there's all those different levels. It depends on how involved you want to get in the hobby.
I think everybody should start a hobby.
Yes, and this is a good one.
It's wonderful, and I'm happy I do it, and I'm happy we can give back and we can help out and stuff like that. And it's one other episode. It's one other adventure. I mean, if you guys want to check us out, you guys can check us out on X at Live Free Honey. Freedom Honey 2.0 is what we go by. Twitter didn't like our last page, but that's a different story. Facebook, Freedom Honey, and keep following us, supporting us on our amateur beekeeping adventure, because it gets pretty spicy sometimes. Yeah, no, you're less restrained on X and on Facebook, as am I, and other things. I mean, you can have fun while you're at it too. That's part of the whole thing. And I just think it's great. Initiatives, creative initiatives, something different to help with a good cause and just spread that word. So hopefully more people get involved and get supportive with it. So yeah, I will leave it at that. I thank you very much for coming in. I know you got to run up to BC and do some work here right away. So. Yeah, day job's a calling. Anyway, thanks for having me on. That was nice to meet everybody. I really appreciate the work you do, and I appreciate your service. Thank you. Not enough people show the appreciation. I'm not going to throw any money or anything, but that's fine. I will send the thanks for standing up for us. I'll send you a Christmas card. How's that? Excellent. That's great. All right. So we will talk again soon, I'm sure.
That was Mike from Freedom Honey. Just look them up, guys. Get on X, get on Facebook. Maybe they'll get themselves a website going eventually. Who knows? He doesn't look enthusiastic about it. But all the same, it's just fantastic. I like seeing creative things. Like I said, it's important to give things out to causes, but it's also better when you see it integrated with a product or, in this case, an activity as well. Get soothing. Get out there and spend some time with those bees. It's this Wild Nature Farm saying, better go finish the extra feed for my bees if you're warm enough to manage to squeeze it in. I've been too worried. I stopped feeding a couple weeks ago down in the valley. I mean, it gets too cold at night. And yes, folks, you do feed the bees at certain times and things like that to keep them going. There's a lot to the hobby. It's not terribly complicated. It's not that hard, but there is some to it. The thing I like about it as well, if you get into it, it's not like other forms of livestock or even keeping dogs and cats. If it's midsummer and you want to take off for a week or two, you can leave them for a week or two. They should be fine. In wintertime, if you winterized your hive right, done your work and everything, you don't have to do anything with them for months. Leave them alone. They will take care of themselves. So it's not quite the commitment that some of the other things out there in agriculture, I guess you could say, are demand of you. And a lot of people are getting into it in the city. The only thing I would counsel, again, like check your local rules, check with your neighbors. If you got a neighbor who's got a couple of children who are very, seriously allergic to bee stings or things like that, might not be appropriate. But most often, if you got good neighbors and you communicate, you can do it right in the city. There's a friend of mine, Lotfi. He's right out down South Calgary, and he's raising bees right in his backyard, and it's going great. All right, so yes, check them out, guys. Freedom Honey, that was a good talk. All right, let's talk about some other things. This popped up. Arthur Green used to be with us. He got scooped up by a competing employer. I'll put it as that. As he made him an offer he couldn't refuse. So he's no longer been writing for us, but he's still active out there and things. And those who remember Arthur Green, he's our great goofy newfie. He would get out there on the Edmonton Transit and take pictures of just how bad it's gotten, how far it's fallen, the amount of addiction, the amount of crime, the amount of mess. And he very much embarrassed a lot of the Edmonton Council on that. In Calgary, they'd get upset with me for doing the same thing. I didn't do it as thoroughly as Arthur, but keep putting those pictures up there because people who don't ride the train, people who don't go downtown, don't necessarily see how bad the addiction problem is, how badly the enablement cult has failed, by saying, oh, we'll just let them ride the trains and let them use them as rolling safe consumption sites. It's not safe for the consumer of these drugs, nor for the poor people who are trying to commute to and from work or school or the grocery store or whatever they're doing on public transit. So either way, Edmonton has this press release they put out, and it was put out on X, though, a part on the top, which was basically saying media shall not go onto any transit property, ETS, Edmonton Transit Services property, without checking in with them first, letting them know, giving them at least 24 hours notice. And of course, they're only open 9 to 5 or something like that. And they are not to go on any property, including trains or buses or stations, and do any reporting, taking pictures, taking video. Really? How about this? Kiss my butt. That is so far and beyond the pale on offending free press, you guys. Who do you think you are? And we know that's a response to Arthur's. He embarrassed them too much. He exposed what they didn't want to talk about. Well, too damn bad. Fix your problems before trying to threaten media and tell them where they can or cannot report. And as Angry Canadian, one of the commenters said, good luck enforcing that. Yeah, I know. I think it's a bluff on their part. I mean, really, what are you going to, because if I get to Edmonton, I think I'll just have to go out there and take some pictures. Don't worry, guys. I'll throw it out on X and let you know I'm going to do it. And I'll get on the train and I'll take some shots and take some video. I'd love to, I had a recommendation from somebody to do a live show from the train. That might be a little hard, when you're getting attacked by the roaming addicts, but all the same, who are you to tell me? And what would you charge me with? If I bought my ticket to ride the train, who are you to stop me? And what are you going to charge me with? Reporting in a public place? Good luck with that. I would love to see that in front of a judge. Even the most goofy of Trudeau-esque judges would not convict somebody for reporting in a public place. But it shows the arrogance of bureaucrats, because I don't think this came from the ranks of elected officials in Edmonton, though they get some pretty goofy city councilors and certainly a mayor who's out to lunch. Calgary's got similar. No, this came from the bureaucracy in the transit service. This came from the pointy-headed bureaucrats, the ones you never hear about, but they're still making six-figure incomes to come up with stupid crap and mismanage a large system. And Edmonton's LRT system is a gong show. But Mr. Stanley says, yuck to kissing my butt. Well, you don't have to kiss it. But, it's a recommendation for those who want to tell me where and when people in any form of media, whether you like that form of media or not, may or may not report. Free press is essential. It's integral to any democracy. So, instead of trying to threaten to crack down on reporters who dare go on public transit, just fix your mess, you clowns, because that shows the other aspect of bureaucrats and government and people like that. They don't want to go to the trouble of fixing their problem. They don't even like admitting they have problems. They'd rather cover it up. They'd rather hide it. They'd rather try to stop us from reporting on it. Well, I'll make it pretty clear to you guys. No, it's not going to work. We're going to keep reporting on it. So just fix it. It'll make it easier for all of us. One more commenter saying, is the Western Standard looking for a Calgary reporter? Has a friend who might be interested. For anybody, email. I think info@westernstandard.news might be the best one for it. Or look on the site. I know jobs have been posted in the past when they're up. I don't know if there's openings or not. I'm the opinion blowhard, so I don't necessarily know about those parts of the operation. But by all means, the more the better wherever you are in Canada. If you think you might be a fit for the organization or have something to offer, there's nothing to lose in sending in an application. Aside from that, I don't know which openings may or may not be going at any given time. George Nelson saying you'd be charged with mischief, which is the catch-all carve for anyone charged for anyone telling the truth. Yeah, possibly. Again, in that case, I find it very difficult to see them managing to get a conviction for it. But I don't put anything beyond them trying. I really don't. Speaking of trains, and I wrote something on this, and I'm going to go on about it a little now, and there'll be a column sometime later on this. But out of the throne speech in Alberta, the UCP, Daniel Smith, who I think again is probably one of the best things to happen in Alberta in a long time. We'll see. I'm certainly supportive of most of what Premier Smith is doing in the direction she's gone. I certainly respect her as a libertarian, conservative-leaning person. But then when they inserted into the throne speech a plan to look into having a high-speed train between Calgary and Edmonton, whoa, where on earth did that come from? I mean, it's nothing new. People talk about it every few years or whatever. People talk about all sorts of things every few years. It doesn't mean we put it in the throne speech. High-speed trains fail. They're right up there with universal basic income. They're up there with rent control. They don't work. They don't work in North America. Why are we even considering this? We have so many things going on, so much on our plate, so much to do, and you want to piss around with a high-speed rail boondoggle? It's insane. It's insane. And I will cover it in the column too, so I suggest you go online and read it when it comes out, where I give full details, but I'll give some of the basics, like look to California. We got a good recent example of it. California, because Premier Smith was on saying, well, we expect Alberta to get up to, nearly 10 million people by 2050. She didn't source how, but okay, fine. Even if we do, if that happens, if our population doubles in that period of time, we got bigger issues to deal with than trains. We're going to need hospitals. We're going to need schools. We're going to need to expand our roadways. And most of all, we're going to need houses, millions of houses. And we don't need to be messing around building a high-speed train that nobody asked for, aside from small lobby groups, and nobody can afford. So look to California. They've got almost 40 million people, so 4 times, this is currently 4 times what Premier Smith thinks Alberta will have if and when we get this train going. Now, they started their high-speed rail project back in 2008. It's been 15 years. They've barely broken ground on it. Their project was supposed to be finished at a cost of, and again, I'd have to look to my own column to see the exact numbers. I believe it was in the realm of $30 billion, and it was supposed to be done by 2020. They got none of it done yet. They got a 170-mile stretch they've decided to focus on, which they think might be done by 2030 now, and is going to come in around $130 billion. Whoa, for what? And this is higher density area. This is a bigger population, and it's not feasible there. There's no bloody way it would be feasible here. Can you imagine the fun of trying to buy the property required for the right-of-ways along the highway? to get such a train going. Can you imagine the ticket prices? I mean, let's say you're going out with a family of 4. You're going to see Auntie Margaret up in Edmonton for Thanksgiving. Great. Okay. Well, this train is going to cost $200 a head for tickets, say, unless we want to really soak the taxpayers heavily. Let's assuming it's built. So you're going to go to Calgary, I imagine. You're going to park your vehicle somewhere, and let's get real, you're going to pay to park. You and the family are all going to hustle onto this plane, and like a flight and everything, you'll probably want to be there at least half an hour, 45 minutes early. Get on this train, zip you up quickly, so for, let's say it's cheap at $400 each way. Zips up to Red Deer, stops there. Zips up to Edmonton, stops there. Then you rent your car or get your Uber, or maybe put on your stab-proof vest and get on Edmonton Transit Service, where I'll be taking pictures. And then make your way over to Auntie Margaret's for dinner, and then repeat the whole thing on the way back. Or, bear with me, you just get in the car and drive there. What do you think is going to happen? What are people going to do? Sure, there's a handful of commuters are going to use a train like that going back and forth. But you know what? Those are the same people that are already doing it with planes, because it's going to be about the same price and probably about the same amount of time commitment just to fly there and get yourself a vehicle on the other end. It's just a ridiculous, non-starting, expensive boondoggle of a policy that's going to come. And this needs to be nipped in the bud. I do not know where it came from. It wasn't anywhere in the campaign platforms. I didn't remember anybody screaming for it at the rallies, or, I dare them to try and say, people at the doorsteps were saying, no, I'm not worried about the cost of living. I'm not worried about Ottawa's incursions into Alberta. I'm not worried about my pension plan. What I really want you to do is spend tens of billions of dollars on a high-speed train to Edmonton. Where did you guys get this from? Don't. Get rid of it. Stop it. You've got a lot to focus on, Premier Smith. And again, I'm looking forward to you focusing on those things. And I'm certain you're going to do a magnificent job on those things, but not the bloody train. Cut it out. Focus. And here's some things to show why it would be a problem as well. Here's some stuff coming out of Ottawa, as always. And the Commons Government Operations Committee said they ordered disclosures of 12 years worth of federal contracts involving selected suppliers. And this is following testimony from a Quebec subcontractor who said he could prove sweetheart dealing involving bad apples, in his words, in senior ranks of federal public service and favored suppliers. And that's it. I'm not saying the Smith government's corrupt, but what I'm saying, when you get these mega projects, you get these multi-billion-dollar projects, and you start getting hundreds or thousands of bureaucrats involved, and you start getting dozens and dozens of contractors, you're going to get problems, and you're probably going to get some corruption going on. It's just a recipe for disaster. Yet here we are looking to dip into it. So this has been going on in Ottawa because, again, they're spending large dollars. I mean, look at this one. This is the next story. $8 billion. We talked about this before, about a solar-powered warehouse at Rideau Hall. Why? Why did we spend $8 million for a warehouse? And nobody could explain that. And then we also find out that this was buried in the Crown Corporation's budget. Yeah, they buried it. They hid it. They tried not to even have it found. So they knew they were doing wrong. Somebody did really well out of that. Come on. Building a barn for $8 million that nobody needed? So again, let's talk about a train for tens of billions of dollars. Do you not think the parasites will come out of the woodworks? The crooks, of course they will. You'll do everything you can to try and stop them. You'll do what you can to try and control them, but they will come. They're like flies to poop. When they smell big contracts, big government notions and ideas, where there's an opportunity to have some nice little side contracts, they will come. And I'm just floored. I really am. I mean, Premier Smith is so typically grounded, so typically libertarian, so typically small government. And I know she's got a love for trains. The people who are into trains are really, really into trains. Everybody knows a few of them, sure. And Premier Smith and her husband most certainly are. I mean, they owned that Whistle Stop Cafe, not to be mistaken for the one owned by Chris Scott up in Meilleur, but they had one down in High River, and it was in an actual train car that had been converted into a restaurant. Jane and I went there and had breakfast one time. Fantastic food, had a good time. But I mean, for somebody to buy into that sort of business means you're a heavy duty railway aficionado. You're into that thing. Good for you. That's right on. Don't transfer that love or obsession or whatever you might want to call it, though, with trains into public policy. We can't afford it. Ontario's flirted with high-speed rail as well. You can look it up. All sorts of provinces have looked at it. Every time they study it, they say, no, it sounds cool, but it's just not economically feasible. And now, like I said, we're having it entrenched in the throne speech. That means it's a serious priority. It means it's one of the top things she wants to get done in this session. Something that was invisible in the throne speech was the pension plan that she floated out there that everybody's been talking about. Why aren't we keeping that in the spotlight? Why isn't that front and center? I think right now that's one of the bigger public relations issues you have to deal with, rather than trying to sell us on a train. And I mean, it's no mistake that classic Simpsons episode with the monorail showed as a con artist coming in, trying to build a monorail that nobody needed, going nowhere, because these are the sorts of projects that towns, cities, provinces, states, countries have been screwed over with for decades and centuries, probably. So it's got to come to an end. Either way, I'll come to a close on that. Maybe I'll ask some of the people at the UCP AGM this weekend about what their thoughts are on that. And hey, if you got thoughts on them, send them my way. So thank you guys all for tuning in today. westernstandard.news to get all the stories and stuff unfiltered. Watch all those channels to see the pipeline coming on. We're going to talk a bit more about a few more issues and things going on. And yes, tune in next week at this time, guys, and we'll do it all again with a whole new set of issues.
Canadian Shooting Sports Association. Without the CSSA, our gun rights would have been taken long ago. These guys are on the front lines helping to draft smart and intelligent firearms regulations and legislation in Canada, and more importantly, educating the public about how we keep guns out of the hands of the wrong people. To become a member, it's absolutely worth every penny.